We'll be playing Manzanas con Manzanas, which is the Spanish version of Apples to Apples. Even if you didn't come to last meeting, you can still come.
Yeah, we'll have churros, so
So if you guys were paying attention, you see close to the door of the design shop, there are two big suspicious boxes with unknown substance in it. Don't worry, this is pretty much what it is and some other stuff. So today in Tech Club,
we're going to be building a $500 budget gaming PC that can run GTA 5 smoothly.
And it's close to break. We all want some fun stuff. Do you guys like barbecue? Yeah. Today we're gonna barbecue this. Basically, what happened is some of its chip designed to malfunction to me, and it's really agitating. So, as a consequence of this naughty chip, I'm gonna burn it alive. I.e., I'm gonna turn it on or I'm burning it. So today, lunch, design shop, we got fire extinguisher. Yeah.
Cross country has a meet at Marina where we get to jump over hay bales over sandy terrain, so it should be pretty fun. Runners be at the Vans right after 6th period at 2:45.
Hi everyone, we'll be having a quick Key Club meeting today in
Ms. Durkee's room.
Yeah, hope to see you there.
Also, have you ever wondered what's it like to be a surgeon or practice alternative medicine like acupuncture, work internationally, do film production, be a computer engineer, practice law, work in finance and risk management, or more? Well, now's your chance. Today in the music room there is going to be a acupuncturist, an otolaryngologist, a general surgeon, all coming to speak about medicine and what their journey has been, and you can ask them questions. So if you're at all interested in that, that will be today at lunch in the music room.
Field hockey, we have a game today at Christopher, and there's an early van leaving at 1:30, but if you have a test or something you need to stay for, there's a van leaving at 1:50.
Yeah, and you should dress out during work jobs. No, lunch.
Today at lunch, Room 2, the first York School Model United Nations Conference is starting. North Korea, no prior research necessary. Please come. Today at lunch, business room.
Cube Club.
Meeting. Go there.
So 8th grade is cleaning out the lost and found today. If you have anything you need that you know is in there, you might want to check that out. So have fun.
If it's in there by the end of the day today, it's mine.
Just real fast, sophomores, tomorrow morning is a late start day. However, you at 8:30 need to be in the theater so we can do the pre-registration for the PSAT. So I'll see you tomorrow.
A tear rolled down my grandfather's aged cheek as he sat next to his wife of 73 years in one of the two white chairs, listening to the notes resonating from the piano in front of me. It was a beautiful baby grand, and one of my grandmother's prized possessions, which had been given to her when she was 8. The piano had a rich sound that carried throughout their tiny home in Millbrae, and, more importantly, they were able to hear it from their position a few feet away. I decided to switch to a more upbeat song. It was much less satisfying to play for a crying audience than a happy one. What should I play? I thought. Nothing came to mind. I turned my head to look back at them and saw the blank, confused expression on my grandmother's face. She had not been the same since last Thanksgiving, when she had experienced what we believe was a stroke. After that, her mind had gradually deteriorated into the dementia-induced state she was in that day. Simple actions that used to be easy for her were now just out of her grasp. No longer could she walk around the house, or sit up in bed, or even hold a conversation. Her memory and concentration just weren't what they used to be. My grandfather, although he wasn't always fully lucid during a conversation, and his memory certainly wasn't very good, could at least hold a conversation, and could generally get the names of his children and grandchildren right. Nonetheless, as my grandmother's medical condition worsened, my grandfather began to experience increasing symptoms of dementia himself. Eventually, he was no longer able to keep up with his stocks and favorite sports teams, and he had to be reminded of what he was discussing and who we were. As a result of my grandparents' mental and physical regression, they were mainly confined to their own home. Their lives were boring and unvarying, and only our visits, which were becoming increasingly frequent, seemed to bring them any joy, particularly when I played piano for them. At first, I felt this was an annoying obligation. I gave up many Saturdays to visit their small home so I could see them and play for them. I imagined all the fun activities I could be doing with my friends, all forfeited for this seemingly useless venture. However, all the selfishness was washed away when I began to play and saw the joyous smiles on their faces. I felt guilty sometimes that I put myself before them. So here I was, sitting on the hard wooden bench in front of the old baby grand, hoping I could please them and brighten their day a little. Now that I look back, I understand that it didn't really matter what I played for them. It was the fact that I came to play for them at all that really made their day. This past Sunday, I visited my grandparents again for the first time in several weeks. My dad had warned me beforehand that they were more confused than ever, and I mentally prepared myself on the drive up. It was a difficult visit. My grandfather lay in bed for most of the time and was unable to finish his sentences, and my grandmother seemed more weak and fragile than ever. And although we weren't able to bring my grandmother out into her family room to listen to me play, my grandfather listened in melancholy silence. When it was finally time for me to leave, my grandmother began to tear up. She held my hand in hers and said, "Please visit again soon." I smiled at her and replied, "Of course, Grandma," because now I understand that not everything has to be about me. I still sometimes feel annoyed when I have to miss a sleepover or a movie so I can visit them, but I believe that the best way to show someone you love them is to put their needs before your own. Thank you.
Powerful reminder of something that I was already thinking about but wanted to just share with you for a moment. You know, we enjoy a happy time up here on the sunny hill, and we stay pretty busy. We feel safe, especially here at the end of a quarter. Everybody's thinking about what has to get accomplished before they have some free time. Yet over the last couple of weeks, month or so, the news of the world has been breaking in on us. With a lot of tragedy, a lot of disaster, a lot of loss of life, hurricanes and the like. And much of it seemed far away, and then just in the last couple of days came the news of this shooting at a concert. And I've been to a lot of concerts, and I think I suddenly felt more vulnerable and more aware that those people who have lost their life were people's brothers and sisters and family members, friends, cousins, sons, daughters, and that's a great loss. It's not just a set of numbers in a news story, but something that we should be aware of and sympathetic and empathetic about. And so I thought, just given the loss of life that has been experienced and the number of families and people who have been affected, that we just take a moment to remember all of these people with a moment of silence. Would you join me? If this kind of news is unsettling to you, and I'm sure it is, and if there's a time that you would like to have someone to talk to about it, please feel free. There are a lot of adults in this community who would be very, very happy to just sit down and be a human being with you for a few minutes and talk about what it's like to live in a world that has some uncertainty to it, and to consider what this loss of life and these tragedies have meant to us as a human family. So thanks very much.
Just a quick follow-up on the wonderful presentation, sophomore speech this morning. In terms of thoughtfulness and safety on campus, we will be doing a drill shortly after the break for other, possible scenarios and emergency situations. So be prepared for that. And as always, during those drills or breaks, it's really important to treat them as a real incident. And so that means, of course, being quiet and following procedure, which we'll talk about more shortly after the break. But I just want to mention a few things in terms of respect and thoughtfulness for others. I think we have someone who's using a wheelchair out here. And I know when I walked down today, there were at least 20 backpacks blocking that ramp coming down. I don't know how someone would be able to negotiate that in a wheelchair. And we've talked about this in the past, so please be thoughtful about where you're putting your backpacks. Similarly, simple things like driving, a lot of cars coming through very quick through the parking lot. I know it makes me nervous to see it, and so please remember it's 5 miles per hour when we drive through. And of course, be respectful when you come in and you're being picked up or dropped off. Try and keep that little circle open so that cars can move through. Thank you.
So we have all of 2 people going to Ashland as of today. So people who are going to Ashland, that would be a very expensive trip for those 2 people. If the rest of you didn't turn in your $10 to me or Miss Reese by the end of school on Wednesday.